Welcome back to Make Space Boring News. I'm Jason Kanigan, founder of this thing called Star Technologies, a data science and process improvement firm. And I am here with Raphael Roettgen. He is the founder of E2MC, which is a space venture capital firm. And he is always watching space investments, and every month he gets to do an article in spacewatch.global about what happened in the previous month for investing in space. And so I love to have him on here. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jason. Pleasure to be back.
So what happened in the month of July 2020 in the world of space investing?
Yeah, I mean, on the pure investing side, at least for publicly announced transactions, it's been a bit anemic, so to say. We have a total of less than 60 million of investment rounds, which is much lower than, I mean, it's actually better than the month before, but it's lower than sort of like historic months. Top was a Chinese satellite company. I think the only thing we can say is that it's been a nice geographic distribution. Like there was a Chinese company, there was a French company, and there was also a company from Singapore called Celestial. Actually, why don't we dwell on that for a minute?
Yeah.
Since again, there's not that much to talk about in terms of the overall numbers. So I thought it was interesting, because many people watching this may not be aware that, sometimes we think that the US is the epicenter of the space world. And of course, this is true. And then people think, okay, there's also Europe and the UK and all of that. But there are also emerging other locations around the world with very interesting space startups. I could highlight Japan, very vibrant, active space community, putting a lot of money, both public and private money, into space. Australia, Israel, and also Singapore has more and more space startups. And I thought this Trans-Celestial round was interesting. So they got very good investors in this round, a bunch of investors, but including Airbus Ventures, which is always, a blue chip corporate venture capital investor in space, as well as an entity connected to the Singaporean government. The other thing that's interesting about Trans-Celestial is it's one of the optical communications companies, which we at E2MC think is a very interesting theme to watch in space. As some viewers may be aware, optical communications has a number of advantages compared to traditional radio frequency communications, including much higher capacity, and also there's basically no regulation because you don't have this sort of interference problems, or at least much less that you have in IF communications. So there's a number of startups in that space already. People like SA Photonics in the US, Veneric in Germany, Skyloom, of course, in the US, which actually E2MC has an investment in. So we think that's an interesting field to watch, and just want to quickly highlight that both for the fact that it's in Singapore, as well as for the very interesting subsector of space, we think. So, but again, as I say, the overall number of less than 60 million, a bit anemic, but guess who came to save the day? I think we all know. While there has been no official public announcement or SEC filing, it's pretty well known by now that SpaceX is intending to raise $1 billion in Series N or something. I mean, we're going to run out of like the financing round Series letters soon, but $1 billion, and at a valuation of 44 billion. That's up from 36 billion just a few months ago. And,
wow.
and those news, also interesting to say, those news came out, and that round was kicked off even prior to some of the very recent positive events for the company. So obviously they did this round more or less on the back of the launch of DM2, of the crewed launch of the Dragon capsule. But I mean, the round started when the capsule was still up there. And of course, there's always risk in coming back as well. But of course, we had a very successful return to Earth and splashdown. So that has arguably de-risked the company further, as you had now a full successful mission of the Crew Dragon. And then, of course, really recent news last night, 150-meter hop of the Starship prototype SN5. So again, that's arguably de-risked the company further. So very positive news flow, the momentum for SpaceX.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very exciting. For folks wanting to learn more a little bit about the Singapore space industry in the Far East, that part of the world, one of my early interviews in space in season 2 of the Gold Star Project was with Simon Gwatz of Equatorial Space. And he's obviously right there. So I got to ask him about, hey, what's going on in that part of the world? Well, very cool. Raphael, I see you have a different background there. I understand you're traveling. That's not the usual.
Yeah, I'm actually in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil for some meetings.
Nice.
I mentioned this in the past. There's sort of like a very up and coming space scene developing in Brazil as well. That's partly on the back of the fact that they're going to be reopening their launch site at the Alcantara Space Launch Center.
Awesome, awesome. Well, folks can go check out the article on spacewatch.global. I'll link to it below. And we'll see you next month, I guess, Raphael. Thanks for doing this.
Sure, you're welcome. All the best.